Welcome back. The lives versus livelihoods debate is continuing to draw the attention of people from all sections of society. The most recent reaction is from local businessman and former independent senator Evaristus Jean-Marie. Tempers flared last Thursday when Prime Minister Alain Chastanet made the infamous statement to which the SLP called him out. In his defense, the government's senior communications officer said that the statement was merely taken out of context. Jean-Marie believes that under no circumstances should livelihoods be more important than saving someone's life.
I don't know how someone could possibly conceive that you could consider questioning whether a life should be saved or not. And that's very worrying when a leader speaks in that kind of language. But here's the joke about this. You cannot talk about livelihoods unless there are lives. Lives always come before livelihoods. So it doesn't matter what you may think. So the statement doesn't even hold. It makes no sense. And I don't know why people are trying to talk about out of context. What context could you possibly put that to make sense? There's no context you could put that in to make sense. It's a stupid statement. And Prime Minister, as usual, just glibly talks, and he really needs to do less talking and perhaps start doing some serious work.
And that was local businessman Evaristus Jean-Marie. One of the first acts of newly sworn-in President of the United States, Joe Biden, was to sign the United States back into the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Former climate change negotiator and former Sustainable Development Minister Dr. James Fletcher says with the U.S. back on board with the Climate Change Agreement, it augurs well for all stakeholders. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
Just hours after being sworn into office, Joe Biden has moved to reinstate the United States to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, in addition to numerous other executive orders to tackle climate change. Following a 30-day period, the U.S. will be rejoining the international effort to curb the climate change crisis. Environmental management consultant Dr. James Fletcher says this is pretty much a done deal and spells change not just for America, but other developing islands. He says the ideologies of the former president were irrational.
When Donald Trump removed the United States from the Paris Agreement, it really dealt, I think, a serious psychological blow to the whole concept of multilateralism and everybody being united in the fight against climate change. The other thing that the United States withdrawal from the Paris Agreement did was, I think it robbed the Paris Agreement of funding for the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund is a funding instrument that has been established to help developing countries like St. Lucia fight the impacts of climate change, and also to be able to finance things like transitioning their energy sector to renewables. And the Green Climate Fund really should have been capitalized to the tune of $100 billion by this year, 2020. We're nowhere near that.
Dr. Fletcher says the benefits to be derived from the rejoining of the U.S. are numerous.
That powerful influence that the United States has of getting other countries to come on board, that was lost. So hopefully a few things will happen. One, that with the United States rejoining the Paris Agreement, that we will see more funding going towards the Green Climate Fund, and there will be more funds available to small island developing states like St. Lucia to be able to fight the impacts and adapt to the impacts of climate change. I think, secondly, that we will see more ambition from these countries, from the developed countries that are responsible for the high levels of carbon dioxide that we have in the atmosphere that are causing global warming. We will see more ambition from these countries to reduce on their emissions and to move to what is called net zero.
He says the United States' influence should lead to more interest by other parties in pursuing the goals of the Climate Change Agreement. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
The Archbishop of Castries, Robert Rivast, has called on the public to react positively to the new COVID-19 measures, which will begin on Friday, January 22nd. The Archbishop says that while he understands that most may have COVID-19 fatigue, the measures are necessary to curtail the spread of the virus.
I have heard very strong language used in respect to measures taken to counteract this COVID-19 pandemic. But my sisters and brothers, we have to support the Ministry of Health. We have to support the government in its measures at trying to make some sense out of this difficult situation we are in.
As part of the new protocols, churches are allowed to operate with a blended approach, being able to physically gather with a maximum of 25 persons, including the religious officials. The Archbishop asked the public to bear with the protocols for the 10-day period.
This puts pressure on our parishes, especially to get the information out to you and to work out a way in which we can take in a measured number like this 25, which includes the priest, and if there's an assisting deacon and an acolyte. So we have to know how to use what is available in the most effective way possible for our liturgy and our celebrations. And then for baptisms, weddings, funerals, and other special sacramental celebrations in the church, we are only allowed 10 people.
Rivas says that now more than ever is the time to act responsibly. With the increasing number of positive cases of COVID-19 on island, home isolation is being employed by the Ministry of Health. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, says these measures are only being employed for a select group of patients. As of Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, there were 287 active cases of COVID-19 in St. Lucia, with very limited bed capacity at the respiratory hospital. And to not overwhelm the healthcare system, the Chief Medical Officer states that the Ministry of Health has had to employ more avenues to better manage the number of active cases.
With the increasing number of cases, we have taken a policy to allow isolation at home for persons who meet the criteria and are asymptomatic or very mild. Because if you note, for example, in my update, I said we had how many active cases? So 287 active cases we have now. So the capacity to be able to keep, and these are mild and asymptomatic persons, most of them, we only have one person in critical care.
Back in November, the Turning Point Rehabilitation Center was being used to house COVID-19 positive patients. At the time, there were 78 active cases. With more cases anticipated in the coming week, the Chief Medical Officer says that other facilities are being used to house those not in home isolation.
Notwithstanding, persons who have moderate or don't have the conditions at home for isolation, we keep those within the hospital setting. So the patients that we have at the respiratory hospital, the majority of them do not actually need hospital care. They're there for isolation because they don't have safe isolation conditions at home. We're also using some guest houses and inns to house some of those positive patients. In terms of our capacity, we are not at a breaking point. We only have one critical person in care at this point. Our recoveries so far have been 418.
The officials are hopeful that the introduction of the newest set of measures would curtail the spread of the virus. The island's Deputy Commissioner of Police has called on citizens to adhere to the recently instituted protocols. Milton Daisy on Wednesday admonished the public of their reckless behavior, which has contributed to the recent surge in cases. He cautioned that non-compliance would be dealt with in the strictest manner. Since the COVID-19 pandemic reached St. Lucia's shores in March of 2020, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has played an integral part in persuading citizens to adhere and comply to the stipulated guidelines. Time and time again, it has been revealed that while some people adhere to the protocols, many have chosen to disregard them, causing numerous spikes in COVID-19. In January 2021, the island recorded its biggest spike to date and has sought to clamp down on the activities which have been blamed for the spike in cases. Daisy says that these newest set of measures are as a direct result of non-compliance.
We have come there on several or numerous occasions asking persons for their ability to comply, being responsible, but it appears that persons, they do not follow protocols, they do not want to follow protocols. However, I must say that there are individuals who were following protocols, who continue to follow protocols, and I'm thanking them for that. So we are asking in these new measures that you follow the protocols, because where protocols are not followed, we see where it leads us to, that stricter measures would be put in place.
The Deputy Police Commissioner says it is precisely for this reason that action had to be taken against the sale of liquor, particularly at bars.
We have had the COVID wardens, we have had officers going out there to persons, warning them and so on, but I think the time has come that we have to take definite action against persons who do not comply with the protocol. I'm urging members of the public, if you do follow the protocols, and I am sure CMO would see a reduce in the numbers, and that we could go back to normalcy or bring back some of the activities that we are cutting down. We realize that with social activities, that is one area that we had to look at. And I must say, law enforcement, we were actually putting pressure to have it curtailed, because we realize that persons do not, especially at the bars.
The newest regulations will last for a 10-day period beginning Friday, January 22nd, except for the suspension of liquor licenses, which began on Wednesday and will run for 21 days. And you're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. There's more after the break.